If you could, is your microphone on?
It is showing as green.
Okay, that's better. Roll call. Commissioner Ruick?
Aye. Here.
Commissioner David?
Here.
Commissioner Courtney?
Here.
Vice Chair Tencher?
Here. All right. Next, I'd like everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Commissioners, I'd like to have someone recommend that we adopt the agenda for tonight. Can someone make a motion?
I'll make the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. In this particular case, for the approval of the minutes, item 5 on our agenda, only 2 of us were present at the last meeting. Is 2 sufficient to approve the minutes?
No, we will have to continue that to the next meeting.
Okay, so we'll just skip it.
Yes.
If that's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, item 6 is public comment for items not listed on the agenda. So if you'd like to say something, you have 3 minutes to come to the microphone and let us know if you'd like to, make your comment. But if it's an item on the agenda that you'd like to talk about tonight, then please, there's an opportunity when that agenda item comes up. You'll have an opportunity to speak then.
Even if it's not on the agenda, we can come and propose something.
Now would be the time.
Are the agenda topics limited to 3 minutes?
Yes.
Hello. I'm Patty Walsh. I live at Rancho, and for a long time, we have observed the town. It's a walking town. There's a lot of things to look at, and time and again, we see people running through red lights. I mean, the stop signs, and a lot of times, I just wonder if it would help. Especially at the busier places or the places that the stop signs are hidden a little bit, if they could put one of those solar little mild flashing lights of I'm a stop sign. I mean, it's just a thought, because I could see somebody getting hit just because of the walking and all the distractions. So that's my little bit of information I want to communicate to you.
Thank you for your comment.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Anyone else for public comment on items not listed on the agenda? All right. Item 7 is in the administrative and regular items. Item A is to appoint a chair and vice chair for a 2-year term. What I'd like to do is start first with the nomination for chair, and I'd like to entertain from the council members if anyone would like to nominate someone for chair.
I will nominate Alan Tencher for chair.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you very much. Now we need to do the same thing for a vice chair for a 2-year term. Would anyone like to make a motion? I'd like to nominate Mr. Courtney for his role in that position. Vince, are you?
I accept.
All right.
I seconded.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Item B in section 7 is a Yountville Elementary School site update. Town Manager Ralston will take that on.
Yeah, thank you, Chair and Vice Chair, and welcome, Lorene, to the Park and Rec Advisory. And hello, Myrna, everyone, and welcome to the public as well. I'm Brad Ralston, the Town Manager. I wanted to provide the opportunity to share a few details about the pending or proposed acquisition of the Yountville Elementary School. We also, actually, we had earlier today our Measure S committee. For those who don't know, we have a Measure S, which is a funding source that is off of our hotel tax, which is intended for affordable workforce housing and services. So there's an oversight committee that met earlier, and I worked with acting town clerk Hillary Gady over there to create this this FAQ document that we didn't print out. I didn't know we were going to have such a big audience today, so we did print them out for the commission. But I will tell everyone that we intend to have an open house on Tuesday from 3 to 6 over at the school site. So there will be many of these available. And really the purpose is to give the public the opportunity to come over. It'll be in the multi-purpose room, which is the sort of the main room over there. I will be there with other staff, and we will have some information, including this, but be able to answer questions and start to talk about the future. What you see here is, in essence, this general idea of how we're paying for the site, which is through several funding sources. One of those is Measure S, and that's the one that requires that we look at housing, affordable workforce housing on the site. Really, the rest of the funding was what we call general fund, which means there's there's always government strings attached, but there's opportunities for the town to kind of shape the future. Meanwhile, there are existing buildings that are usable, and when you look at the three main buildings, we want to start the discussion about what sort of interim uses we could consider, with the understanding that interim can be challenging sometimes because you create uses that people fall in love with, and then you have to displace them or figure out how to work that through. So I just am starting the conversation. I mean, we haven't closed escrow. Currently, the schedule, at least based on the contract with the school district, is that we would close escrow mid to late April if all the due diligence that's underway goes as planned. And so far, so good. If those that live in the area and have maybe watched what's happened in the last 2 weeks, there's a lot that's happened. And so the school district is performing and making sure that if we acquire the property, that we are acquiring an asset. That's what I keep saying. We're acquiring something that we can make use of. I mean, and I will say for this group, although you oversee recreation, the park is the obvious piece of the puzzle that we need to also talk about, because the baseball field and the grass area would be a key component to the acquisition. So not looking for input this evening, wanting to close escrow. Once we own it, we will roll out a community outreach process. But while we're in escrow, there will be the opportunity again for the public to come over, look at it. They can ask any questions. We've been talking about how we can start to gather input in general, but there's a sequencing issue of obviously we want to make sure that what we're buying again is an asset that we understand the costs associated with that, and I think we're a long way down that path. But until we actually own it, I think that's a key point in the process. Let's see, what else did I want to say? I think the numbers, just briefly, and I think this is part of how we're going to start to message this, is because most people read the Sun or read the Register and know kind of what was reported. The transaction is actually $11 million. What was appropriated in terms of the council's approval was $11.5 million. And then what's being discussed, including in this brochure, is $12.5 million. So let me just take a few minutes to explain the difference between those. The $11 million is the purchase price. The $11.5 million is the $500,000 is in essence for us to do the due diligence and also for us to implement what I'm referring to as the initial improvements. We've kind of broken the three phases into initial, interim, and then idea, just to use 3 I's. And so idea is obviously what's the future and how do we really work as a community to talk about the long-term future. And then the interim is where things get a little tricky. But when we talked about $12.5 million, we were generally talking about an additional $1 million to do the planning and outreach for the idea phase, and then having a budget to do certain things with the existing buildings on an interim basis. So that will become more clear as we're able to, communicate and also understand. We currently have a lot of experts over there doing the due diligence and making sure that the systems, the mechanical systems, the electrical systems, the plumbing systems, all of the infrastructure to the buildings is functional. And once we're clear about that, then we are in a much better place to talk about potential interim uses, so that we don't, propose something that we can't afford, at least in the short term. Last thing I'll say is we were able to acquire the site, and that $12.5 million number that I'm talking about, thankfully, was, sort of in the bank in terms of, excess reserves, or what we refer to as unassigned fund balance, which is money that had not been allocated previously. So we weren't. It wasn't necessary to issue debt or to, look at other external funding sources other than the Measure S I referred to, which was about a third of the purchase price, a little less, I think technically 27%. So when we talk about the site, I will start to talk about it in quadrants, so kind of plot 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we're sitting on plot 4, which is the current town hall site and the parking lot behind it. But then you can envision the 3 other quadrants, if you will, that we're acquiring, which would be the field, what I'm referring to as sort of the housing plot, and then the school site, which is sort of the interim or civic or whatever term makes most sense to people. But I think that will help as we talk about these 3 phases and these 4 quadrants or 4 plots. Then we can, start to use a glossary that is easy to understand. So that's really where the town is at. Obviously, it's an exciting opportunity, and it's a major project. And, we're looking forward to the PRAC's involvement in shaping that. We have the Measure S committee. We have other groups, including the entire town, that's interested. So we'll make sure whatever process we roll out engages, everyone. But at the end of the day, the town council, has to make these decisions, and staff has to guide them to a place where we feel comfortable implementing them. And we have opportunities, both short and long. So I'm excited to be part of it. I think it's a great opportunity, and I think as you talk about items later in the agenda, because I know obviously there's lots of discussion about certain issues. I do think there's opportunities on the school side. I just don't want to get ahead of ourselves and start talking about things that may replace other things until we feel comfortable or feel relatively certain that we're able to implement those. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so this will follow the usual flow as any other agenda item. Is that correct? In terms of introducing the item, staff gives the report, which we just heard. Then we're going to, because we have some new members here, the commissioners will ask questions of staff. So this will be for every agenda item.
This is just an update, so you can ask questions of Brad and then move forward.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, so there won't be public comment on this item.
No, it's just an update at this point.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that. All right. So, commissioners, any particular questions of the town manager? I have a couple. I heard you explain the difference between the 11.5. I understand the 11. I understand the 5. And I understand what the 12.5. I understand the difference of the 1 million is going to be used for. But what I'm unclear on is, I think so far only what has been approved is 11.5. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So when is the ask for the next million?
Probably during the budget. You know, we have our first budget workshop scheduled for April 16th, and then the second one is May
7th.
May 7th. So, depending on where we're at with the transaction, it likely would be during one of those meetings.
Okay, thank you. And then a second question. I don't want to get bogged down in this, but I am curious. So, Measure S is funding a quarter of this, about something like that.
A little more, yeah.
But there was another affordable housing component that makes up a significant portion as well. Is that right?
Well, what happened, I think it was about 3 years ago after the school closed, there was, when we say unassigned fund balance, that's generally the money that's left over after the audit. And so there was a significant unassigned fund balance 3 years ago. I think it was roughly $6 million. So the council at the time allocated that into several reserves. One of those was this affordable housing. I don't know the exact title, but
right.
It's designated, but it's a general fund allocation. So when I say it doesn't have strings attached beyond just government strings, that's what I mean. It's general fund, but it was put into a reserve identified for whatever the exact term was, affordable/workforce housing, but not with Measure S funds, if that makes sense. So yes, that was used for the purchase, but that was money set aside 3 years ago, I think, when they initially were looking to acquire the school.
Right. And so is that restricted?
No, it has no housing restrictions, if that's what you mean.
That was exactly what I needed to know. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so thank you very much for the update. What we have now is item C, review and approval of the Washington Street parking lot beautification project, and I believe that will be Rosalba.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Rosalba Ramirez, the Deputy Public Works Director, and I'm bringing today the item for our proposed plans, and this is a draft plan, of what to do at that south gravel parking area just south of Veterans Park on Washington Street. So the plans that were included in the report show a dog run area that extends just slightly into the tree area to kind of capture some trees. It'll be fenced in, and it'll extend south to where the utility fence is, and you can see it's kind of an enclosed area where there's gravel and some existing utilities. And that'll be an enclosed area for a off-leash enclosed dog run area. And just adjacent to that along the street, we also want to provide parking. So there'll be, and this is just a draft look at what the angled parking could be. So back-in angled parking, similar to what's on the north end of town at RH. So that's just a proposal to show what could fit in if we do it in that configuration. So we'd get the back-in angled parking, sidewalk, and the open area for the dog run. And then just south of those utilities, we'd have, in this configuration, kind of an overflow paved area to allow room for buses or limousines to park. And then we also want to include, since we moved it to this side of town, the sandbag area. And this is where every year before the wet weather season and the storms, we provide a sand pile for sandbags to be filled in preparation of floods. And then we also use it for other additional public use areas to store different items that are going to be available for the public to pick up. And so those are the main components that we wanted to capture with this draft plan. And it's kind of our attempt to try to utilize this area as best we could. And we did have previous grants that we applied for to try to get funding for some form of improvements in this area. We were unsuccessful with those grants. So now we did budget for this project or a project in this area to try to provide improvements from just the gravel area that's being used for parking into something a little bit more. And so that's what we're presenting today. And this is the current draft plan presented to you for your review and comment and approval.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so commissioners, now is an opportunity to weigh in on this item and ask clarifying questions of Rosalba.
So I want to thank you for doing a very nice plan and also for being available at the site when I personally walked by, and you gave me a lot of input regarding your project, and I find it really very impressively done. The only key question I have is, once you get town council approval, what would be the estimated timeline for completion of the project?
And so depending on what that final direction is, we are trying to get it moving forward before July 1st. So it might be split into components to be, what the priority is. So we might move forward with the dog run area and the fenced in area first, and then incorporate the paving area for the parking after that's done. So it could all be at once and all be done before July 1st, or in components, and depending on weather and ability, some improvements might be completed before others.
So you're saying before July 1st?
Before July 1st.
And that would include the dog run?
That would include the dog run.
Thank you.
Vincent, anything you'd like to add? Or
I don't think
add?
so. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Lorene?
I just have a really quick question. When I walked down there was a fence leaning against the fence. Is that kind of the model of what it would look like on that far end?
Yes, and so what we did in preparation for this meeting, the Parks and Rec Department sent out notices letting commissioners know and the public know that a mock-up of this plan is out there. So the barricades that are out there are to signify the fence line for the enclosed area. The wooden panel that was leaning against the back fence was the sample fence panel that would be up to go at that end, kind of blocking the State Route 29 view from the dog run. And the fence that would be adjacent to the street would be minimum 5 feet, possibly taller, but minimum 5 feet tall. And it would try to mimic or stay in the same style as our townwide fences. So the wooden fences with the chain link fence or the hog wire fence in between. So
I had several questions. So the fence you're referring to is like a hog panel, that kind of fence?
yes,
With the squares?
With the squares.
4-inch or...
we are trying to, that's kind of the idea of knowing that there are maybe tennis balls or balls that would go right through that. So we are trying to brainstorm kind of, if we go this route, what fence would prevent that from happening, but still maintain that look.
Okay. So I had several questions. First of all, a comment. I really liked the double gates. I thought that was a nice feature. In looking at the sidewalk relative to the angled parking, the truck actually overhung the sidewalk, so I think that's a challenge.
Yes.
That you may need to rethink that a bit. The other thing that came up is people, when they go to dog parks, they socialize. They want to watch their dogs run around. So is there a plan for any benches inside the fence so that they could sit and talk and watch their dogs play?
Yes. So this draft plan is to kind of show the overall layout of how it could go. So once we get direction or approval on this, it would now be finalizing the plans, which would include fountains for dogs, the trash bins, and benches. And where those would go, there's going to be, if we enclose those trees in there, there'll be some shade there. So should the benches go there, further down? So this is really just a draft outline to get some direction, and then we will add more once we get the approval.
Okay. And then I guess the last thought I had is the surface material being bark or chips of some kind. Is that correct, or is it a different surface?
We're still trying to decide what surface is best. Some of the research that we've seen indicate that dog parks could benefit more from that type of chip type surface and not necessarily grass. But that still is doing some research, finding out what is recommended for dog areas, and then present it to PRAC and the council and get an agreement on what would be best for that surface. So right now we don't have an actual surface that we know we're going to go with.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for staff at this point?
Thank you.
Okay. I'd like to go ahead then and open up this item on the beautification project for public comment. This won't be a back and forth discussion, so really you're just to make your comment, and then we'll receive your comment and go from there. Again, limited to 3 minutes. Would anyone like to speak? Michael Bork.
Yes, it's true. I'm Michael Bork. One question about, to clarify things. I had, of course, looked at this on my phone. Just to be clear, the left side of this is north, which is great because I thought it was the other way around, so I like this a lot. Anyway, I just want to offer my support for this. I think it's been a long time coming. A lot of people in town have presented this idea to the town council to seek to get approval for it and support for it, and I think there's been support, but for some reason that's a mystery to me. It's not been moved forward. So I applaud the fact that this is being considered. It's time to do that. I love where it is. I think that it's away from some places where some people who don't like dogs will be happier that it's a little bit out of sight. So anyway, I'm all for it, and I just hope that you will give it approval and move it on to the town council. And thank all of you.
Thank you. Would anyone else from the public like to comment on this item? Okay, I'd like to close the public comment. Commissioners, would you like to give feedback or ask any other questions, clarifying questions?
I'd like to move that we approve this project as it's been developed.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So that item carries.
Thank you.
All right. Item D, off-leash dog hours in parks pilot program for review and feedback.
Yes.
Staff is going to give this.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Commission. So as some of you know who are on the Commission and others who may have followed, during our Parks and Recreation Master Plan, we did have this concept of a dog park run area come up quite a few times. It was probably one of the most prominent items of feedback that we saw in the survey results from the Master Plan. So it is noted in our current Master Plan as something that we will be working towards. And one of those ideas is a short-term solution, which could be in the format of this pilot program, which would offer off-leash hours in some of our existing parks. This is an idea for a short-term solution with draft language below. Currently, the town's ordinance prohibits dogs from being off-leash in public areas and requires at least a 6-foot leash. So this would allow us, after your feedback and if the town council approves it, would allow us to be able to have set hours for this pilot program, which we're proposing would begin in May through November 1st, allowing us to see how it goes and giving feedback before we would move forward if it is successful and well received with an actual ordinance update. So currently, the town council can offer the off-leash areas on town property under our current municipal code language with the approval of this type of a program. So during the program, the leash requirement portion of our municipal code would not be enforced as long as it falls within the pilot program parameters. And so after doing a lot of research, there are various cities in our adjacent areas as well as really statewide and nationwide that have this type of a program of off-leash park spaces. And so gathering that information, staff put together what we think would be a proposal for you to take a look at that might suit our needs for this pilot program in Yountville. So we're proposing it would be sunrise to 9 a.m. and then 4 p.m. to sunset daily, and that we would be looking at specifically Vineyard Park and Yountville Community Park turf areas. And then we're also proposing, you discussed, although as to the town manager noted in his update earlier, we haven't finalized the acquisition of Yountville Elementary School, but we do think it would be beneficial to talk about the potential of that coming forward at the Yountville Elementary School. I forgot that we have 2 commissioners that need to recuse themselves before I started. I apologize. What was that?
I think it's after you're done.
Do you have a comment on that? I think it's now.
Yeah, I think it. Yeah, I mean, if you're going to recuse yourself, usually you leave at the beginning of the
Yes.
item, but I was, you were on a roll. So
Sorry.
Yeah.
I just went for it.
I should have.
No, it's okay. So I know you both would have to read the disclosure. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I was advised by the town attorney that due to the fact that I live within 500 feet of one of the parks that have been proposed for the off-leash dog pilot program, which is Vineyard Park, that I have to recuse myself from this agenda item and leave the room. Sorry.
Through the chair, on the advice of council, because I reside, we're all pretty close, right?
Yes.
I
It's a very small
reside
town.
adjacent to the school district. Regrettably, cannot participate in the conversation, but I'll return when the item is done. Thank you.
Thank you. So yeah, just to explain, the FPPC, the Fair Political Practices Commission, has very specific laws around participation, and so our town attorney gave some advice about proximity. It's a very small town, so it makes it difficult. It does also kind of change the focus of this. It's very much, we knew we were going to have a lot of public here tonight. We didn't want to postpone the item again until we had a full quorum of 3 here. So we'll go ahead and hear the item tonight, hear your feedback, hear from the 2 commissioners that can participate. But they will not be voting tonight on this. So just so you're aware of what's going on. Sorry, I jumped right into my staff report. All right. Shall I continue?
Would you please?
Okay, thank you. And just so you know, that's never happened in one of our meetings, so it's a whole thing. Yeah. So again, going back, sunrise to 9 a.m. and then 4 p.m. to sunset daily is what we're outlining, and that would be for the Vineyard Park Turf Area and Yountville Community Park Turf Area. And then the discussion around sunrise to sunset, should we acquire the Yountville Elementary School property that could be implemented on the field that is not the Little League portion of the field. So staff would assess and monitor any issues during the trial period, and this can include feedback from general park users or other dog handlers, any maintenance issues that are observed by staff or reported by other users, feedback from the neighboring residents in those areas, and then we also hope to enlist the help of feedback from volunteer community monitors. So people who are active, they could be dog owners, they could just be people who walk our neighborhood that might want to just help us with, hey, I saw this today. So looking at how we can really monitor that during the trial period. We often have special events or program use, and then of course maintenance, and those things would cancel the off-leash dog hours. Cancellations would be noticed and posted in advance. An example could be when we have a movie in the park, or an event like Walk to End Alzheimer's, or of course when Little League is playing. And then pending any changes to the program, town staff and the town attorney would potentially prepare a new ordinance to bring back to the council in the fall that could potentially make this a formal program, depending on how it goes. So things that we would implement prior to the trial period would be new mutt stations, trash cans, and new signage that would be installed near those areas. And it's important to note that the areas would remain unfenced and open as they are today. So this is not an enclosed area proposal. We would conduct extensive public noticing to make sure people knew that the program was starting. We also included some draft signage language in the staff report, which would include outlining the area, that it's the hours of it, that it could be canceled due to those reasons I noted before. We would be requiring that dogs be licensed, wearing identification tags, healthy with current vaccinations and not in heat. Dogs can't show aggression and must be leashed. Dogs showing aggression would need to be leashed and removed from the park. Dogs that are open to be in that area off leash must always be under voice control and responsive to commands. And the dogs must be kept on the turf and not allowed to enter the playground, picnic areas, sports courts, or drainage areas. So we also say dog handlers assume full responsibility and liability for their pets while using the park, including their supervision, behavior, cleanup, disposal of waste, and ensuring the dog does not dig or damage. Understand that this is a privilege to utilize the off-leash area, and it may be revoked at any time. Must not leave children unsupervised in the area during off-leash hours. aware and respectful of park visitors using the space. And then we note that any dog bites must be notified to animal control, and we give that number, and then it would list County Elmville Parks and Rec Department and emergency, non-emergency dispatch, and then our emergency phone number. So this item's before you tonight to discuss and give feedback, and all of that feedback from the commission as well as the public will be compiled for the town council to review this when it comes under their consideration. So again, we won't be voting on this. We'll just be providing feedback.
Okay, thank you very much.
Happy to answer any questions.
All right. So, Lorene, any particular questions at this point?
Not yet. Not yet.
And my understanding is, in terms of our ability to give feedback, we can make suggestions as to whether a particular park is appropriate. We can make suggestions as to whether a particular hours are appropriate.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Sorry, and when would we be able to do that?
We would do that after public comment. Okay, so if there are no other questions, then I'd like to open this item for public comment. I see a hand up.
Thank you very much, Michael Bork. I should start by admitting that I've broken the rules many, many, many times as regards having a dog in the park. I have done so responsibly, as I would if this moves forward. I've never failed to take a dog out of the park or control a dog. There have been a couple of dogs that we've had that showed an inability to be controlled, and so they were never let off the leash. I've seen, over the 20-plus years that we've had dogs and the 30-plus years that we've lived in town, I've seen hundreds of people and their dogs running in the parks, in particular in the morning. You know, for us, on a practical basis, it was extraordinarily important, given the breeds that we tend to have, Border Collies and Australian Shepherds. The ability to throw a Frisbee, a ball, those kinds of things were, critical to us. I could never walk enough to really make them, to give them the exercise that they needed. And to be clear, oftentimes that was 5 or 6 miles over the course of a day. So I'm really for this. I recognize that there is, as there was when I was breaking the rules, there is a need for people who are participating in this and bringing their dogs to follow the rules, to use common sense, to recognize that they're doing this as part of a community, that they can't bring a dog that's going to threaten other people. You can't bring a dog that's going to misbehave. I know we are going to have dogs that are going to misbehave. I know that we will control them, and I would trust that other people would. And for the record, I've not seen other people who have come to the park as I describe it, where they came with a specific desire to exercise their dog, where I felt that they were doing something inappropriate. So I hope that you'll give a recommendation to move forward. Over the course of this program, I suspect that there could be some changes to it. You know, I recognize that it's a little bit challenging to make changes on the time frame. During the winter, the hours that you've listed are fantastic. The morning hours, I think, should never be changed. I recognize that in the evenings and summers, in an ideal situation, you could set it up so it said, let's say, 2 hours before sunset. That may be impractical, given the fact that people need directions. But that would be the only comment that I would make. At 4 o'clock in June or July, you know, that's kind of prime time for a lot of people. Again, I've not taken a dog to the park during that prime time and allowed them to be off the leash unless I felt completely confident that they could do so and be under my control. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hillary, are you watching a timer, or shall I do that?
We were just under the time there, but I'm keeping track.
Good. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you for your comment. Yes, please.
Hi, my name is John Dorenbecker. I live on Oak Circle, which is very close to Vineyard Park. I wish all dog owners were as respectful as you are, sir, and even though you did admit to violating the rules. So I don't have a lot of confidence in dog owners that say that, number one, they're going to pick up the poop. Many of them do, many of them don't, that their dog never bit anyone. I add the word yet. And I think this overall is a bad idea from many fronts. from a hygiene front in a park where there are weddings, children, pickleball players coming and going. Who's going to maintain it? Many of the owners don't bother to pick up after their dogs. The noise, allowing your dog to run free and have fun with his buddy dogs at sunrise. I mean, my bedroom window looks right at that park. There are many homes right there. There's no fencing, understandably, going to be permitted. Those dogs will have free range to just go where they want, including into our grassy area in our development, which we have a constant battle with dogs off leash running into. It looks like one big park. When you're driving in, particularly from out of town, which I believe this will attract out of town people and their dogs, it looks like one big park. Well, part of that is private property. We've been fighting a consistent battle with off-leash dogs in that green area. So the noise level, the proximity to homes, and just as an example, a week ago today, I was standing in front of my garage watching a gentleman walk down the middle of the street whom I didn't recognize, and as he walked by, I happened to notice two off-leash German Shepherds 50 feet away, didn't recognize the dogs, and right in front of me, these two German Shepherds attacked this guy, bit him in the crotch. He went to the sheriff's station, reported the incident. It turned out that these dogs were not coming from the park, but they had been visiting at a house who had left the gate open on the side, and these two huge dogs, which, 50 feet, no, maybe 100 feet the other direction, could have been coming out of the park doing the same thing. I think it's a terrible idea. I think the school site is probably ideal. It's already got fencing around most of it. And I think up at the north end, that park is also inappropriate unless you're willing to fence off part of the park. I think Vineyard Park is too small. The community park might have the space, but you'd have to not share usage between the public and the dogs. I don't see that working. So that's all I got to say.
Thank you very much. Yes, please.
Jim McDonald. I live on Columbard, which is very close to the park as well. First thing I'll say is that in terms of recusing, I believe that a couple of council members may have to recuse on this issue as well because of where they live. So that's something to think about. And I assume we're going to hear, I did make an e-comment. Is that going to be read at some point?
It will not be read into the record, but included in the agenda and minutes afterwards.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to elaborate on what I e-commented. I request that the Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission remove Vineyard Park from the off-leash dog pilot program. Dog parks and dog runs, especially unfenced, should not be in neighborhoods close to people's homes. There is little separation between Vineyard Park turf area and many homes in the Vintage development where we live. And somebody sitting right behind me lives in one of those homes. She can reach out and touch the plantings which rim the turf area. So she's that close. Over 10 years ago, a dog park was proposed to be located next to the tennis courts and what are now the pickleball courts. The project was abandoned because resident concerns about noise and safety issues existed at the time. In that case, the proposal was for an enclosed dog park. But in this case, we're considering a dog run that will be completely open and not enclosed. I feel the noise and safety issues would increase significantly. I am also concerned that when word gets out to the broader community that Vineyard Park will be off-leash for dogs during certain hours, my neighborhood will be deluged with out-of-town or out-of-area dog owners in addition to the already heavy pickleball traffic. The proposal of off-leash dogs in Vineyard Park specifically is simply a bad idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else, please, sir?
Good evening. My name is Dan, and I live in the right directly across Oak Circle from Vineyard Park. I love your idea, by the way. I'm here today to oppose the Vineyard Park dog run or any potential long-term dog park for a lot of the reasons that these two gentlemen just spoke of. It's just too close to residential housing. It's also the traffic concern with the increased popularity in pickleball. I'm not sure if you walk back there or been back there lately, but it's pickleball heaven now.
It is.
And then the preservation of the park itself. We have a lot of parks, beautiful parks in the town. None of them had vineyard views. I see this as a money generator for the town with the weddings and the permits and the picnics and so forth. So why don't we preserve that for the people of Yountville as well as our visitors to the town? I just want to touch on a couple of personal experiences. My grandson and I love to kick the soccer ball around in our grassy area, which this gentleman mentioned is right outside my door. Last summer, we were kicking the soccer ball around. A dog came from the park unleashed right across Oak Circle. Lucky he was a friendly, aggressive dog. Attacked the soccer ball, popped it in his mouth, and took off with the soccer ball. No big deal. Just so you know, the owner of the dog came back 2 days later and gave my grandson a brand new soccer ball. So that was cool. The second one, we were out there about a month later. He comes to visit like on a monthly basis. An aggressive dog came from across the park, jumped on my grandson, knocked my grandson down. Again, I think it's generated because we had a soccer ball. So luckily, these two incidents weren't aggressive dogs. So I'm opposed of it. I love the idea behind the school. I love your idea as well. So I would like you to take all of those incidents into consideration.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Please.
Maybe I missed something. I don't know. Is it because the park will be without a fencing at the Vineyard Park? There is no fencing allocation for that?
Yeah, it would be an unfenced area.
Unfenced.
Yes.
So I understand why the concerns. And why is that? Why is there no plan for a fencing?
So we're proposing this as a pilot. We're not supposed. Is it
Yeah.
okay to answer a question?
Yeah.
Sure. It's proposed as a pilot project to serve a need that we heard in the master plan. So it is just an idea. And there are, even in neighboring cities like Napa and St. Helena, they do have parks that have off-leash areas in them that are not contained in fence. So it is a pilot program that's being offered, and your feedback is really valuable.
Right. No, I get it. I mean, I have a small dog, so I like to have my dog off leash whenever I can. But I understand the concerns of those that don't have dogs, obviously. So hopefully maybe something can be done for a fencing of some sort.
Thank you.
May I please get your name for the record?
Excuse me?
May I please get your name for the record?
Oh, yeah, Victoria Pasquarino.
Thank you.
Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Julie Worthington. I'm on Oak Circle. The park that we saw up here earlier, everybody likes that, and it went through. Why are we even discussing another park? That's a dog park, dog run. Isn't that enough?
Thank you. I don't know if I can. Can Michael make another comment if he wants? Usually it's open and closed, but
To your discretion, absolutely.
Michael, go for it. I think the whole point of this is to get things aired out so that we can make better decisions. Hang on a second, please. Thank you, Michael.
Let me start by expressing my understanding that I have for the concerns about Vineyard Park. I recognize that that's distinctly different than the park that we use, which is bordered by a hotel and parking, essentially a parking lot on two of its sides. and I think there's a total of 4 or 5 houses that abut it. And so I recognize that that's distinctly different than what has been described for Vineyard Park, and based on that, I would also make the recommendation that that be removed. On the question of why it's something that we like, we have had dogs that don't like a dog park. We have had some bad experiences at dog parks. Now, having said that, we've had plenty of dogs that do like dog parks, and I'm supporting that. But there have been, we have had a number of dogs that we just wouldn't take there. We had a 3-legged dog, we had a blind dog, we've had a number of dogs for which a dog park really didn't make sense. So our ability to go to the community park works very well for us. It's a big space, and as I said, we're very respectful about it, and we do it in particular in the morning when really nobody's there. Again, based on what I've heard here, I would say remove Vineyard Park. But I wanted to make sure you understood that I do see differences between a dog park and ability for me to walk over and throw a Frisbee for my dog. Thank you.
All right. Jim, did you have something else?
Yeah, just a quick question or comment echoing Julie. If the enclosed area south of the bocce courts is going to come to fruition in, what, July, did I hear? So soon. Again, I'm going to asking why is Vineyard Park part of the discussion?
Thank you. Dan? Dan, could we get your last name, please?
Zerbonia.
Thank you.
Yeah. I want to be clear that we're opposed to the pilot program in Vineyard Park as well. So I know it's going to take a while to get another park, a permanent park, but I'm personally opposed to the pilot program in Vineyard Park. And I know Julie is questioning why we're having a discussion.
Yeah, I think we've understood that. Yes, in the back, please. Please, yes, and state your name.
Hello. My name is Karen Thurling, and I live at 1891 Hopper Way, just a little bit of ways from the park. And I oppose both Vineyard Park and the community park. There's Alston Park on Dry Creek Road. There's plenty of room there. It takes 8 minutes or less to get there. A park is a park. It's beauty. You want to lay on the grass. You don't have to smell poop, pee. A dog park is a whole mixed bag of tricks. And if you look, when you Google Alston Park, it says dog park, it says dog park, picnic tables, dog park, it's dog park. So, yes, it's going to open it up to not only the community of Yountville, but everybody. And that is a bad deal. And the grass will die because all the females pee, the grass dies, dogs run. Pretty soon it's just nothing but dirt and dust. And the noise, the smell, no, it's not a good thing. I manage properties for a living. I have for 40 years. So we've gone through this dog park thing with my profession as well. I don't want to see it where I live. I don't want to smell it. I don't want people parking in my driveway, blocking my driveway. I don't want kids being bit. I don't want to get bit. And when I want to have a picnic on the grass, I don't want to smell urine, poop, whatever. So there you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, appreciate your comments. Patty, in the back.
Hello again, I'm Patty Walsh. A lot of people in this town have dogs. And in order to be responsible dog owners, we do have to provide them the opportunity to be a dog. I understand 100% what people are saying about laying in the grass, and I think we all understand that. I have looked at the dog run. I appreciate that what Yountville generally does, they do it extremely well, and I'm anticipating that in this situation. A dog run sometimes is, well, it's not a dog park. A dog run and a dog park are two different things. I feel like that run in certain situations, and you talk about those German Shepherds, certain breeds of dogs are actually more aggressive in that size of a space. You need an open space. So if people are turning away from some of these beautiful parks that we have, and we have so many in this town, it would be nice if something I fear that the dog run is going to be, okay, we've checked that box. And so I'm hoping that in the event that people are turning away from some of the proposed sites, that they really strongly consider an area in the schoolyard, that can be fenced and kids aren't lying there with their picnics and all the other things that people have addressed. Because I know that there's a lot going on in this town, and it's always been done so well, and I understand the concerns of the people that live on Oak Circle. But I do think that owning a dog that loves to play Frisbee and have a healthy life, it's my responsibility as a dog owner to try and provide that as well. Okay?
Thank you very much. Other public comment, please, sir.
Good evening. My name is Chris Cordera. I live in the Vintage on Oak Circle. I'm a resident of the town for 26 years. My first opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you.
Well, you haven't heard this yet, so.
No. We look forward to it. That's why we're here.
So this is concerning the transition of Vineyard Park into an off-leash park. And a lot of what I was going to say has already been said, but I'll mention a couple of things that haven't been said. So from Park and Rec magazine, I don't know, Samantha, if you're familiar with this public. Okay, so here's from their website. This is a page they have that advises municipalities that are planning an off-leash dog park. I'll quote. The American Kennel Club website recommends a space for a dog park to be 1 acre or more of land surrounded by a 4 to 6 foot high chain link fence. Preferably, the fence should be equipped with a double gated entry to keep dogs from escaping. It should be segmented and divided by a chain link fence, a section for smaller and older dogs, and a section for younger, more boisterous animals. Dogs are hard on natural grass, and the smaller the park, the more heavily used the surface will be. The area may become skinned and bare because of dog and foot traffic and dog urine. So the proposal to use Vineyard Park really doesn't make a lot of sense if you look at it, just on the face of it. It's small, it's immediately proximate to homes, and hosts a variety of people daily activities. Now here's something you may or may not be familiar with. Unlike typical parks, Vineyard Park lies within the constraints, the campus, if you will, of the Vintage Association. In fact, Vineyard Park was originally part of the Oak Circle development, that and the east side of Hopper Creek that abuts Heather Street. This is in the late 70s. At some point, that land was removed from the planned development, although it was in the initial context of the development, and it was bequeathed to the town. So obviously it is a town park. So as a result, the park has a seamless proximity to the neighborhood. There are no boundaries. The walkway runs the perimeter of the park. The access from Oak Circle to Holly Street goes right along there. People walk through there every day to take their daily walks, along with the access to, as has been said earlier, the various exercise facilities, etc. The time period, well, we've already stated that. Early in the morning, I don't think anybody wants to be awoken by cars arriving and dogs barking at 5:45 in the morning. That's sunrise, by the way, in the summertime. Right? Park late afternoon, 4 p.m., that's when the park heats up. You're going to have family usage. People come home from work. They bring their kids down there. They're flying kites. They're throwing Frisbees. Small children and infants are playing in the grass. We don't have to get into that. Public noticing is going to bring people from out of town. We know that. And dogs have unpredictable behavior, especially around unfamiliar people and other dogs. Another piece of information. I don't say this for dramatic purpose. Last Sunday in Reno, I don't know if any of you guys saw this, at Rancho San Rafael Regional Park that has a dog park that's part of it, an unleashed Shih Tzu approached a leashed Rottweiler. You know where this is going. The Rottweiler bit the smaller dog on its neck and started thrashing it. The Shih Tzu owner attempted to break up the fight and was bitten by the Rottweiler. At this point, the Shih Tzu owner pulled out his Glock and put 4 bullets into the Rottweiler. The Rottweiler obviously died. The Shih Tzu is reported stable at the local vet hospital. Because of the laws in Reno, no charges were filed, as it's legal to fire a gun to protect life and property. So hopefully this never occurs here, and I didn't mean this for dramatic import. But this remains a real-world example of what can happen when you put a whole bunch of dogs into a confined space, let alone what could happen to the periphery. I have some questions, Samantha, not to be answered right now, but just to consider if you haven't already. So who's going to supervise and enforce compliance relative to the behavior of the dog owners and the dogs? Who will assume management of any increased traffic, animal waste, and trash that's left behind? Will the town assume the liability for off-leash dogs? I'm sure council will have some opinions on that. So basically, Vineyard Park is a people park. People picnic, they get married there. It's a highly valued, small, quiet, tranquil park. For many reasons, it's not appropriate for this. This is a benefit that only serves a segment of our citizens who deserve something. And I've heard a number of alternatives. But
So
nearby
Chris,
residents
we'll
are going
need to have you wrap it up.
Yes, nearby residents are going to bear the consequences, and I'd respectfully request Park and Rec would consider other alternatives. Thank you.
Thank you for your well-thought-out comments. All right, anybody else? All right, seeing none, I'd like to close public comment and bring it back to the two of us, Lorene, to talk about what our thoughts are. And if we have other questions to staff, we can ask them as well.
Some of you already know me. I'm at Vineyard Park quite a bit with my dog, and I, in my vast research of 4 people in my neighborhood and around, asked them, would you use Vineyard Park as an off-leash park? And all 4 of them said no, just because it's not something that they would want to do. It's not something that I was kind of surprised because there's one owner that has a dog that likes to run around, but she indicated probably not. I was kind of taken aback by that, but I thought that was pretty good information because there are people that live at Heritage, Oak Circle, and Toyon Terrace, so from all different little neighborhoods. So I thought that was kind of an interesting observation. I really appreciate your comments. I know quite a few of you that live around the park, so I appreciate what you've brought to the table.
Okay. I think we have several issues to address here. Obviously, the first is the selection of parks. Personally, I think Vineyard Park is already overrun with pickleball players, for which I feel personally guilty. But that horse is out of the barn, so to speak. More importantly, and this is something, our Parks and Rec programming is so successful, and we all benefit from that. But one of the consequences is when we choose to do something, we do it well, and then we end up attracting people that don't live in town. And so the vast majority of pickleball players now are from out of town. And so I think we need to be really mindful when we think about that. So to me, Vineyard Park should be off the table. I wouldn't want to do anything there. John, I appreciate your comments about hygiene. Play areas where kids are running around, I don't know, there's this hygiene hypothesis that says, we got to be careful to not keep our kids too clean, but I'll plead guilty here. My older son, we bathed him every night, and now he's sensitive to, skin stuff. My second son, we let him play in the dirt, and he's fine. So who knows what the right answer is, but it is a concern of mine. I share that concern. I wouldn't want my kids running around in dog poop. So to me, the possibility of using the school site, which has ultimately it's going to have other uses. It's going to be divided up in various ways, shapes, and form. But for a pilot project, to me, that makes the most sense because it avoids, areas where children typically play. When you're playing baseball, I guess when you're young, you're more interested in picking clover than, catching the balls. But I think there would be less of a hygiene concern to me in the school site. Although I wouldn't say unequivocally no to the community park, I understand Michael's goal there, but I think it could be met with the school site as well. And then hours. I agree. Pickleball is restricted to an 8 o'clock start time, and we try and police that as best we can, and still there are some people that try and go out too early. And 6 o'clock or 5:45, that's really way too early for me to have noise in. We have a noise ordinance in town. It's 9 o'clock for construction. It stops at noon on Saturdays. So I think that that's something that we need to take a look at. Definitely the hours of operation. Early morning is nice, but not everybody wants to get up at 5:45 like I do. So those are generally my comments. I don't think I've failed. Yeah, please.
I do have one more comment. If we do decide to do the Yountville Elementary School site, I want to urge that there are a lot of gopher holes in that yard, and I do know that dogs, if they're running around, they're going to get hurt. So if we do decide that, we need to do something about the ground, the level ground. So I don't want dogs to get injured or us to be liable. So
ineffective. Okay. So I think you've gotten our comment. I don't think we're voting. We're just giving feedback. So I'd like to close this item if there's nothing else to be done on it.
I just want to chime in, and I want to thank everyone for their first of all, civil comments, but also well thought out. I will confess, in my previous jurisdiction, I built 4 dog parks, I think. So I have a bit of experience on this subject. I also fully trust and respect Sam's ability to guide this. But I think, as I was saying earlier, defining terms is really important when we talk about things. And I appreciated the comments, I think, from one gentleman who was talking about what a dog park is. And I will tell you, there's sort of 3 things that were talked about. So when we discuss this in the future, I think it's important. You have dog parks, you have dog runs, and you have off-leash dog, hours, or let's call it. And in the case of the first one, dog parks are significant space users. And I think you cited 1 acre. I've heard different theories on that. It can go up to 2. I think Alston Park I looked at is 2 acres, I think. So as you think about the school site, think about the space because it is limited. It looks huge, but it is limited, particularly when you think about the need for housing. And then, I think the reality of a dog run, which I'm going to name after Rosalba, is, it is a useful, and in this case, I think as we looked at it, a very useful way to look at a void space. And it's typically a long, narrow space where you can, play fetch. And when I look at that area, it isn't intended to be a dog park where many dogs are, socializing. It's really in a small area that is intended for someone to go, whether it's frisbee or ball, to have the opportunity to exercise their dog. So I think when you think about a dog run, obviously that's what that is, and it sounds like there's pretty good support for that idea. When you think about a dog park, think about the size of it, and then when you think about off-leash, hours or off-leash dog parks, then that's in essence a park where you let dogs run free, without fences, without constraints, and they do have to cohabitate with humans and such. And I do appreciate the comment about, the school site, and clearly we're considering that, as I mentioned, as we talk about that. And I also appreciate the comments about the safety of of the dogs. I would be more concerned about the safety of the children that are out there playing baseball at this point, but I do see the need to, of course, improve the condition of the site as well. So I just wanted to offer that just because, a lot of you, I know I'm new to you, but I just want to share that experience and also some of those terms so that when we talk about in the future, we're clear about what we're talking about. So thank you.
Thank you. So I think it would be useful if we could just say what happens next then for this. How does this process proceed?
Absolutely. So we'll compile all your notes, and then I will be bringing an item forward to the town council, and in the staff report will consist of all this feedback, and we'll also discuss it internally and decide if our approach in the recommendation to council, we are going to alter that based on the feedback we saw tonight or heard tonight. But prior to that, we may update our recommendation and then bring it forward, but the council will see all of this information as far as the feedback is concerned. They also can go back and watch the meeting as well, but there'll be a written recap.
Good.
I don't have a date certain on that yet, but we will do public noticing again.
Right, and depending upon how that plays out, it's very important for you to stay apprised of what's going on, because I can speak from personal experience. If you want to persuade the council, you need to show up, and I appreciate you all showing up tonight. You made a big difference, so thank you. Yes, Griff?
Another question, Samantha. What's the notification process on this meeting? Related, because I only found out that someone forwarded it to me. Mail to
Yeah, well, we mail, no, we don't direct mail. So if you sign up at townofyountville.com, you sign up to get e-notifications. That's the best way to get it directly to your mailbox. But we did there was a, last week in the Yountville Sun and this week in the Yountville Sun, today's Sun, there was information and then via our social media. But I really recommend everybody sign up on our website to get e-notifications, and not just for our meeting, but you can choose a variety of different subjects, and you can get text messages as well as direct emails.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question? So will the town council get the same agenda item that we saw today before this meeting, or will it be amended based on this meeting?
We will discuss that. Yeah, I definitely think the direction that we're getting is that from the commission and the public that, that Vineyard Park needs to be analyzed before we move forward with the recommendation for sure. And then taking a look at Yountville Community Park as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so that item is closed. That is 7D. We have 7E now, which is a shade structure. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. So to keep us moving along, I'd like to have us consider item 7E, which is review and approve, if appropriate, the shade structures at North Park.
Yes, I'm back, Deputy Public Works Director, and I'm bringing, as part of the staff report, a little bit more details and a preliminary plan for the shade structures at the North Park. And we've kind of briefly discussed them at prior meetings. There was, I think, a need for providing some form of shade at the picnic sites shown previously. And then at the May 18th, 2023 council meeting, the town council officially requested that we set a project aside to provide shade structure at these two locations shown on the aerial there. And so what we've done since then, since the last time we've discussed it, reached out to a shade sale company to ask them to give us just a preliminary plan on what's a possibility, what could go here. And so what you see here is one of their options. And so what we want to do is contract with a shade vendor to design something, get our feedback, design something, maybe not this exact layout, but at least something similar to officially present and then go out to bid for the installation of. And so as part of the staff report, we do have some recommendations, and that would be the one, shade cells at these two spots. So at the picnic sites on the south side and the picnic sites at the north side. And then also a color scheme. So as part of the staff report, I included a couple of different color options to try to keep with an aesthetic to the park and keep it kind of more neutral. So we have some suggested, maybe the brown, the latte, and the green combination for the shade cells, the trim, and the poles to go here, as shown there. And so that's kind of part of the request to the staff report, is for the commission to review the shade cells at this location, the drawings proposed, and the color scheme. And so I'm open to answer any questions regarding the shade cells and structures at this location.
Okay, Lorene, do you have thoughts on this?
So would we be taking them up and down during the winter months?
So that would be an option. So they would in essence be permanent, but those types of shade cells can come down. So during the winter when there's not as much sun and there's more wind, we could bring them down.
Okay, that's what I'm concerned about, is the wind. Okay.
Vincent, anything?
Just some of you know, my wife lives in Las Vegas, and these are popular, and they're actually pretty attractive. But I imagine there's different levels of quality. You guys have kind of vetted out fading and tearing and all that stuff.
Yes. So at least the consultant we have for the design or proposed design does have various shade cells installed at different locations. So, and the design is at least providing the layout and also the design of the poles to make sure they're structurally sound. So then when we go to the installation, and we would require kind of reference sheets to say, yes, I've designed X amount of shade cells in these locations. Here's what they look like. And we can go reach out to them and see, what kind of feedback we get. Are they durable? Have they had any issues? What type of quality they're experiencing? So we are definitely going to find high quality shade cells for these areas.
Thank you.
No, nothing. I appreciate this slide here, because now I can finally see the orientation. What remains a bit of a challenge for me is I think it would be useful for the council to see the actual materials. If we have to approve the actual materials, it would be helpful for us to actually see the materials. They even say in their literature that the colors, don't trust the color that you're looking at. I think one of the other things, well, I'll save that comment for the end. And do we have a sense of how much shade? I know from our work in greenhouses and vineyards, you have different weights of shade cloth. So it can be a 10%, it can be 50%, it can be some other number. What percent shade is this going to be?
And so once we get the okay to move forward with looking for the design, one of the items that we're requesting is for them to provide a shade study. So it would be how much area is going to be addressed with the shade and what type of shade coverage are we going to get. So that information should come once we get the actual design in our hands.
Okay, good, because I think that, if we're going to spend the money to put up the shade, ideally they're shady enough that people are going to be comfortable.
And part of that too, sorry to interrupt, Rosalba, but they'll also in that analyze, I mean, obviously the sun moves all day long, right? But to optimize the heat of the day, and you'll see in a lot of these installations, the sail itself is not just flat, it's angled. And so part of that shade study will give us that information on the optimal placement of them, as well as how much permeates through the fabric.
Yeah, good. Okay. Any other questions of staff at this point before we, I guess, open this up for public comment? Anybody want to speak on this? Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and close public comment. So now, as commissioners, now is our time to weigh in with particular comments or recommendations. We're, I think, being asked to vote on this to move it forward to council.
Does that vote include the decision about the colors, or is that?
I think this is all part of what we do. We go ahead and say we like the proposed colors, we like the proposed shape, we like the proposed areas covered. So this is kind of our job. This is what we get the big bucks for.
I'm still waiting for my check.
Yeah, you'll wait a while.
Just bring the colors up for you too.
Well, all I can say is I like the proposal. I like the very neutral colors. And as far as the powder coat colors, I would suggest something very dark, like black, for that. But other than that, the actual material, that latte color, appealed to me.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the things that I was made aware of this afternoon is that the light poles in the park are all that same dark green. So the dark green that was proposed seems to be consistent.
Oh, okay.
With that.
Well, that's fine.
So I thought that was useful information that I got today.
Okay.
Lorene, any other?
No, I like the fact that the latte kind of matches that crushed granite on the base. So I really like that part of it. And I'm all for shade, so I would love to see more shade at that park.
Vincent, anything that you'd like to add before we consider a motion to?
I do like the forest green, but it's hard to know what that really is, and I would concede the point. And what I've seen be I like the 3D. I don't like them. I like when they're, kind of different levels. And I imagine we'll get some feedback from experts in connection with like kind of one almost on top of the other, and then how it's turned, right? Because I think it's more the Earth that moves than the sun.
Did I say the sun?
But I think it's a wonderful thing. I was kind of hoping we would have this conversation when Carol and I were meeting with you, Brad, in connection with the community center area. But I'm glad that you guys are moving it in this direction. I think it's a wonderful look. I think it's both modern and traditional at the same time, if that's even possible. But I also kind of thought the black was a good idea. Yeah.
Well, I guess. With the shapes as proposed, with the shade-covered areas, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the color proposed. I have spoken to some residents; they're not so happy about the. They'd like to see more of a lime green as opposed to, which is one of the color options for the shade. And then, in their opinion, they like a color closer to the ground so that the ground would move up. Obviously, an artist-type person with those comments. But for me, the proposal is fine. The only thought that I had is, and I got clarification on that today too, is that there probably is not going to be a shade sail in the plaza area in front of the community center. So there's no point in delaying or modifying this decision to wait for that decision. So since that one's already done, I think we're okay for that. So I guess we're to the point of making a motion, but I would like to have it be as specific as we can make it. So I think what we're looking for is the color. Well, first of all, we're going to say that the shapes and areas covered are fine. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to say that the color of the light, of the standards, are okay. And then the third thing is we're going to say that 1, 2, or 3, I mean, if we can get specific, if we can agree on the colors for these various things, then we can be that specific in our motion. And then that information, if I understand correctly, would then be presented to the council as our recommendation. Are we on the same page?
Yeah, can I get just a little clarification?
Sure.
Because I think Rosalba said that once you get sort of talk to the sunshade people, the shapes may change based on their sort of study.
Yeah, so it'll be generally this shape, and so your recommendations is what we'll compile and present to council as well. But also with the shade consultant, they still need to come on board and do a shade study.
Yeah.
So it could be the shapes here, because you can't tell really in this view. They might be tiered. They might say the best way to provide the optimal shade is to tier them a little bit and maybe rotate it or angle it. So that's the type of information we're still going to get back from the shade study.
Right. So I just kind of want to clarify that the shapes may change based on their study, correct?
Yes, but it should still be relatively close to this. So this is the preliminary design that they provided to say this is kind of what we think would be best for this area without doing that official shade study.
Okay, so have we agreed that we're okay with the color of the poles and okay with the color of proposed of the cloth itself and the shapes? Are we to that point?
Have we agreed on the color of the poles? Because I mentioned black, he mentioned black, you mentioned green. Do we have agreement on that?
It's up to us to decide.
Okay.
So I think we should ask staff if there's any other reason besides that the other poles are in the park are green, that these would be green as opposed to black.
And I believe that was the idea, was to match the existing poles over there. And then if I'm correct, we can accept the black and green as your recommendations, and we'll compile that information together and present it.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, well, it sounds like based on consistency, the green makes sense. So I would like to make a motion that we accept this proposal as it is written, including the recommendation for the material itself, the color of latte, and then we go with the green poles to be consistent with the rest of the park.
And are we all, there's 2 colors highlighted in the staff report for the shade structures themselves. One is the latte and the other one is
Brown.
What is that other color?
Brown.
Probably not brown. Okay, so latte.
Latte and green.
Okay with latte.
Latte and green.
Should we give the council a recommendation of any other color besides the latte, like the lime green, for example? Does anybody like the lime green? Going once, twice, 3 times sold. No lime green today. Okay, so I'm okay with that. So Myrna, you have a motion?
Right. There's a motion on the floor with latte and green, and to accept the proposal as
I'm sorry.
designed.
Through the chair, just a clarification. Which green?
It's the
Latte. I see latte.
No. Yeah, we're talking about
Lime.
Oh,
We're talking about the pole.
poles.
So the pole is black and green.
None of the poles are now, we're going with green.
Just green.
Because
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that's what all the other
what the
poles
standard is.
are.
So we're selecting only one powder coat color
Yes.
and only one
Yes.
shade color.
Yes.
Okay.
And we're okay with that. Is that correct?
You don't want to do more.
The council can always ask for more.
Okay.
And I'm okay if
I am
we
not
can
here to
take
rock
this-
the boat.
No,
Yeah.
we want to make a good decision rather than worry about rocking boats.
Okay.
So,
I think you've made a good decision.
okay.
Yeah.
So do I have that as a second?
That is my second, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I think we're to the point of having an item that we can vote on. So, all in favor?
Aye.
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 And aye. So there you have it. Okay, so thank you very much for your presentation and for the commission's diligence on that. We now move to item 8, staff informational reports, which is a review plan updates for the Vineyard Park Enhancement Project.
Yes, and I will be presenting that as well. And at previous meetings, we had discussed, first it was the initial conceptual plans for Vineyard Park and some improvements there. And then we also had a grant that we were seeking funds from to provide all those improvements. And we did receive feedback a few months ago that we did not receive the grant. So it was now determining what we can do at this park. And as part of that grant, we were required to provide matching funds. So currently the budget we have for the improvements here are those matching funds, which did not cover the entire cost of what we would hope to do. So now it's finding out what do we really want and need at this park that we could utilize those matching funds for. And so I marked up the actual conceptual plan that we submitted with the grant that we got approval from PRAC previously. And I kind of crossed off the items that we weren't planning on doing as this part of staff report and proposal. So that circled, highlighted red bubble is a concrete path that we want to take and go behind the pickleball courts. And it won't be that full circular kind of courtyard shape that's back there. It'll be a much smaller version that goes to about where the bleachers or benches are for the pickleball and create kind of more of a concrete pad or surface and end there. And it won't no longer extend all the way around to the sidewalk on the other side. So part of this kind of first step of what we want to get done to provide immediate improvements with the funds we have budgeted is a concrete path that connects to the concrete sidewalk that ends at the existing bathroom right now and then wraps around the pickleball courts and stops about where those benches are right there. So about in the middle of the pickleball court area. So a concrete path that would go back to there, create a concrete pad, and then we'd still be looking into what options are best for the seating area there as well.
Okay.
We would also still be looking at installation of an entry gate on that
Have a gate on that end as well.
Well, as a pickleball player, I like this idea. It's very nice. The one thing I was wondering about, since we've been talking about shade structures, can we incorporate a shade structure at that site, especially around the bleachers or wherever the seating area is going to be?
And if, again, we're here to get feedback and direction, so that's definitely something that we could look into and see what would work with that area and not obstruct the view, the beautiful view behind the pickleballs, but still provide something.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments about this? Nothing from Lorene, Vincent, anything? Thank you. I have a fair number of questions about this. So resolve that there's the picnic area, the circle, that's not happening in this phase. Is that correct?
That is correct. And that might not actually happen. Well, I wouldn't say it might not happen at all. What we want to do is now create kind of that concrete surface for the benches or the bleachers.
Yes.
Possibly in the future, if it's requested and still desired, we can then continue on and create a bigger picnic area and then continue the walkway around. But for this particular plan, we're not including any of that.
Okay. Yeah. So for me, to make the flow in that area, in the pickleball courts better, to have a gate on that far side and to have a bleacher where people could wait outside instead of on the tennis courts is just a win-win for everybody. So I'm A-okay with that. Ideally, the gate is one of the more important features. People need to be able to enter and go to either court. Right in the middle where the existing fence is, so that the gate would open and they wouldn't have to intrude any more than possible. And ideally, the gate would swing out rather than in. But other than that, I think it's pretty straightforward. That might even allow us to close off one of the other gates.
And also part of the the grant funding and the grant application that we had brought forward before, and that we're still wanting to provide improvements here, but it's also seeing what can we do with the budget that we have.
Yeah.
So we definitely want to build that concrete path around, but the exercise gym area, we know that surface needs to be repaired, and so we are looking at options of removing that and replacing it with the foam surface we discussed previously. So we are still looking at those options, but seeing where does our budget leave us. So that is something that we're still trying to determine as well.
So in other words, underneath the equipment is the small pea
Rock,
gravel
yeah.
that's stabilized with some sort of synthetic, and that now you're suggesting is going to be replaced. Is that correct?
Yes. So what we did with the original grant application, we called out the maintenance of that, but we knew we have where the outside little tennis table court,
Yes.
we have that foam.
Yes.
We were considering replacing that rock pebble with the foam.
Right.
In addition of supplying maybe a couple more equipment pieces.
Yes.
So that's still the plan, still the process,
So,
if there's budget.
okay, so right now, there's just an informational report. What you're saying is you're looking at several items. The main one is the path, the bleachers, and a pad underneath the bleachers and a gate. That's part of it. And then the other part would be replacing the shade structure and not shade structure, replacing the gravel, stabilized gravel underneath the exercise equipment and potentially adding some other equipment.
Yes. So.
And then once you get those numbers a little more nailed down, you'll come back to us, or what's the game plan?
I believe so, definitely for the equipment area, because I think there's also options of what type of equipment goes there. The concrete path around, if that's pretty straightforward to get done quickly, because we have the budget, and so once the weather starts picking up, that's something we could definitely move forward with, unless there's more information that's required. So that part we might move forward with. And the exercise gym area might be something that we still need to figure out schedules, get numbers from, and then ideas from, and then we can bring that one back, definitely.
No, that's great. Thank you for clarifying. So I think right now we're just going to give feedback. We're not voting on anything. So anybody have anything?
Again, can you remind us exactly? Yeah, the timeline again. I know you were sort of talking in general about it.
So with the concrete path, that's very weather dependent, but once the rain stops, we do have the budget available, and we have a contractor that provided a quote that can move forward within probably the next month or so to start doing work out there. And so if it stays dry and does not rain, that could definitely be done within the next couple of months.
Great. Yes.
Yeah, just a couple add-ons to the, and I don't know the exact past timeline, but I do think what's important to understand is when this project was initially proposed, it was part of a match. It's obviously a much bigger project, and I do know that on, I think it's May 7th, we intend to present the proposed CIP to the town council, and I just want, for the Park and Rec Board, and I'm not sure exactly, this is my first budget cycle, so I'm going to sort of, work alongside staff, but also provide some insights in terms of, one of the things that we have to be mindful is, of course, the whole town, and obviously if we are able to buy the school site, there may be other opportunities, and we would want to look at, the whole sort of issue in terms of priorities for park needs. I do think when we started to look at this, we said, okay, here's some easy fixes, and I'm now, I guess 3 times I've played pickleball out there, so I'm recognizing kind of some of the issues that you're all dealing with, and I clearly think that, proposal. I also, as we discussed this, when we were talking about bleachers and shade, I think the point was made, like, part of the part of the beauty of those pickleball courts is the setting, right? And so you want to be mindful of blocking the vineyards and blocking the views. And I think, so we talked through those different things. So I think that there's probably like, okay, we get the functional piece of like, hey, let's create a little space where people can sit outside, and let's create a gate and access point. But I think as we think about the nice to haves, and like we should think about them in context of the entire CIP, and if there's other things that are maybe higher priorities, that should be a conversation that you help the council guide. So just think of that. I mean, there's always this feeling like sometimes in government where if you have money, you have to spend it, right? It's like, we have a project, let's spend it. And you also, I think, sometimes have to peel back when things change, like you don't get a grant, and say, okay, wait a second. How do we want to look? Do we want to look at this a little differently because it's a different project now? So those have been the conversations, at least I've been having with Public Works. And again, I think there's other functional things. We put in the new gates. I know that was a conversation we had. And I think those are an improvement. But I was out there this week, and I heard from mostly Napa residents other things that we should be doing to improve the functionality of the court. So it's interesting to go out there and live it, and kind of, then the ball goes over the fence, and you got to go all the way around to go get the ball, unless you're, and so it's interesting when you're out there. But I do think I want us to at least do the easy things that are functional and obvious, but then I also want us to rethink this in the context of the whole town versus just how do we make Vineyard Park better. So I just plant that seed, and I know we're working towards a May 7th date where we present the entire CIP to council, and that would be an opportunity to sort of talk about those things in context.
Thank you for the clarification. Anything else? Okay. Public Works General Update, 8B.
One of the updates I wanted to provide some feedback on or information on were the Vineyard Park pickleball courts and the evolution of the pickleball gates.
Yeah.
So we did install initially our kind of first attempt at what would be suitable for the gates, and I think all the pickleball players out there saw that there were some bending of the gates and they weren't quite working well. So we had the contractor come back, and he made some stronger welded gates that I believe are working a lot better. They don't have the sag, and they're a lot easier to open and close. And I know when I had checked in last time, he still had to cut one down to size. So I don't know if they came in yet and replaced that last one. But the goal is to have all the gates in that same welded bar format that's easier to open and close. So we're hoping that works a little bit better than the initial gates that we installed.
So the new gates work really well.
Excellent.
So thank you for being
I'll just say the team that was working on the gates, very, very kind, very cooperative, and very supportive when we had questions. And I want to congratulate you on that group who
Thank you.
put that together.
Now we'll let the contractor know as well.
Yeah, and just since I'm now, I guess, a constituent too, one thing I did hear, and since we're talking about it, I'm curious, because everyone was saying that the new gate was a huge improvement relative to the sagging gates, but they also asked, could we put a stopper so that the gate only opens towards the tennis court? And I don't know if that's something that you all talked about, but I heard that comment, which would be a simple little thing, because they wanted to swing towards the tennis, not swing towards the pickleball, because it's disruptive. Is that a fair comment? Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I did hear that. And the only other thing were you going to say something else, Rosalba?
Oh, not regarding the pickleball gates.
I wanted to mention, because it was mentioned earlier, I don't know, Sam, if you were going to, but we do continue to work on the community center shade, and there are a couple of items budgeted in the CIP that we're relooking at. I don't want you to think we're abandoning shade. We're just looking at it a little differently because of the umbrellas that we put in. We're looking at both how do we, provide that more flexible shade, if you will, where people can have chairs and move around and use umbrellas, but the flexibility of the square in general is the priority because it's used for so many different things. And then on top of that, since we used the barbecue for the first time, the community cookout, for those that didn't see that, we're also looking at maybe how we could improve the barbecue area so that it's, there was a CIP that was talking about converting it into storage. So we're kind of looking at both of those two different CIP projects a little differently. We do have the, what did we call it, the joint committee. There's 2 members of PRAC and 2 members of the Public Art Commission that were assigned to look at the shade structure, because I think the difference between the community center and the parks is, the architecture and the facility is something that is clearly a celebrated piece of the town. So we didn't want to have a shade structure that was blocking that, and so this became an interesting process that we're probably 6 months into. So I just wanted to share with you, we haven't abandoned the idea of shade in the community center. We are looking at these CIPs a little different, and I think back to May 7th, we'll probably be in a position to provide some options to council, and hopefully we can reconvene as the joint ad hoc group and talk about that prior to that.
Good. And anything else, Rosalva?
We do have plans to provide, like we do with our accessibility funds, just as we identify issues in our public areas, including parks, any accessibility issues with sidewalks or concrete. So you'll see some improvements there as the weather starts lining up and there's no rain. We'll start addressing some of those issues. And in a couple parks, if we have something more extensive for accessibility, we'll be bringing back for PRAC's review. So as we're looking at how we can improve, we'll be providing more updates.
Good. So speaking of, I think we've spoken of this before, but we have some new council, commissioners here. With the ADA plan for the town, that's essentially what has happened is it's gone back to have a consultant completely review our ADA compliance at our public facilities, including our parks. Is that where we are?
Yes, and so we do now have the consultant on board that's beginning the process of reviewing everything that we offer at our parks, so our parks and programs, to determine are these programs and the amenities that we offer at these parks enough to require different accessibility improvements or ADA improvements. So right now they're doing the research part where they're looking at all of our programs, our parks programs at the various parks, and any programs that lead to those various parks. And then they're going to provide information and do more field visits. And then we'll be presenting that information to PRAC and to the town council. And their findings, they will make the recommendations based on what they see as required for ADA. And so that'll either give us information on what we need to address, or even information on what we don't need to address that might be in our existing transition plan. So that is actively being worked on right now. Since they're in the research stage, I don't have a lot of updates, but I do have check-ins with them. So as I get something a little bit more substantial, I'll check with Sam to see if that's something that's enough to bring and say, hey, we now have this information.
Okay, and what's your just general timeline, do you think?
We did give them, I believe their contract expires in June, I believe. So we hope to get milestone updates between now and then. And so we officially gave them the kickoff about a month ago, and they've been asking for a little bit more information. So we've given them the links to the website where Parks has a lot of their information on there, what they offer. And so they're looking at all that right now. So possibly by the next PRAC, I'll have some information to bring on where they're at in their review.
Okay. So just for commissioners that weren't aware, so tonight we had quite a few people show up, which is great. The last time we had a fair number of people show up. It regarded ADA access and changes to Three Weirs Park and to Forester Park. And so it'll be nice to have a new look at that to see whether something actually needs to be done in those parks, because it did bring out the residents, which is important. Okay. Anything else on that? I have one more question, and that I did mention this to Samantha, but at Vineyard Park, I noticed that a herbicide was applied, and it looked like to me a systemic herbicide. I thought we were moving away from systemic herbicides and like Roundup, and that we were using only contact herbicides. this must have been at least 6 weeks ago that I
I did
noticed
get an
it.
answer to that, Alan.
Oh,
I'm
great.
sorry if I didn't forward it to you.
Yeah.
Let me find it really quick.
Great, thanks.
Sorry.
I'm not familiar about whether we have a policy on like agronomy and chemicals. We do.
Oh, your mic. Oh. Thank you.
I was asking about for a version of the thank you for a version of any policy that we have with respect to agronomy and horticulture and utilization of those sorts of chemicals, because I don't think I'm not aware of it.
Yeah, do you mind?
Oh, no.
Because I have an answer from John. Okay, so Roundup is banned in our parks and facilities, so the town does not use Roundup. They use an environmentally safe alternative. They spray in the early mornings, so that's what you saw, Alan. And I did not get the exact brand
names
of that.
brand names or active ingredients are always useful.
Okay.
So
I'll
in
follow
future,
up more on that,
would be helpful because it was very effective. Which is, I've used the quote quote green contact herbicides, and they're quite variable in terms of their efficacy. And these were pretty good sized plants that were knocked down pretty well. So always useful to share that knowledge of effective alternatives to synthetic
I will get
pesticides
that for you.
and herbicides. So yes, we do have a procedure or plan for what we apply. Is there a particular document or how do you decide what fertilizers get applied to the parks? What if you have an insect problem, not that you have, but I mean, people apply a lot of chemicals to turf, but we don't, right?
We don't, and we do have the information of what we use, and I think it was decided on by the council to not use those types of more hazardous chemicals. So that's where we moved to the more environmentally friendly chemicals. I don't know if they directed us to use just a list of products or we found products, but we do have certain products that we use that we can provide that information on.
Yeah, I think what would be useful, because it's actually a good question, is what is the guiding document, or how do you, when you go to make your decision, how do you make that decision? Because I think it's wise. We cover a lot of acreage with parks, and I think that whether it be electric leaf blowers and that sort of thing, I think it would be nice to get that word out a little more. Okay. I think anything more on item 8B, Rosalva?
No, that concludes my updates. Thank you.
Always thank you for all your hard work and thinking things out for us.
Thank you.
Appreciated. Samantha, 8C, Parks and Rec Department General Update.
Yeah, so thank you. I just really want to thank Lorene and Myrna for joining the commission and stepping up. I think we have a terrific group, and I appreciate the time I know you're going to put into it. As a department update, as you know, Jennifer retired in February, and there's a public group of residents who are planning a celebration for her on April 21st, which is a Sunday at Yountville Community Park. So look for more information coming out on that. And so we're excited because we held an internal recruitment to fill that recreation supervisor position. And we had 2 applicants, and I'm really excited that as of Tuesday, Garrett Cooley, who's been with our department full-time for about 7 years, was promoted into that recreation supervisor role. As I described in one of our last meetings, we really kind of took this opportunity of change to look at assignments and duties and who does what. So Garrett is not taking on all the duties that Jennifer did. We're rearranging things. So we're really excited about that. And we also were able to then open the recruitment for recreation coordinator. So that would be backfilling Garrett's position. So that's currently open for 30 days. And we're hoping to get a very robust applicant pool because in the next budget cycle, we are proposing another recreation coordinator. So that would then bring us back to our pre-pandemic staffing levels. We were at 6 full-time staff going into the pandemic, and then we've been at 5. So that's really exciting. We hope that that is a robust pool, and we're able to just use that list then in July to then select another applicant. So that's some exciting news. Our rec guide went for summer, is all done. It went to the printer, and it'll be in mailboxes the first week of April. It's already available online, which means we pretty much have our full summer planned out already. Registration will open on April 10th for residents, and then April 17th for non-Yountville residents. And we're really excited because we've been working a lot internally on space use, and we will be able to continue the Golden Ticket program year-round. The summer will be a little bit more limited just because of camp and space, but we are trying to remain as consistent year-round for our Golden Ticket members as we possibly can. And then as things progress with the school site too, it'll be exciting to look at how we can also utilize the multiple use room. The multi-use room for some of those uses as well. And so, and as you know, we're very event heavy in the summer. It's when we come out and celebrate together, every other Sunday, but
Yeah.
Lots of other things going on, movies in the park, music in the park. We're really amping up Pride Month in Yountville again. We kind of started last year with our family celebration in the park, and working with a small group, a planning group here in Yountville. We're trying to continue amping up some of those celebrations, which is really nice. And then, of course, the school site is such an exciting opportunity all the way around. So, we're playing a role in, all of that. And is there anything else I was going to add? I don't think so.
I'm sure
That's
there's
it.
always
I'm happy
something.
to answer any questions that you may have. But.
I will announce that Sam's going on vacation tomorrow, so I'm
Finally.
very happy for her.
You really?
I am. We're going to Hawaii tomorrow for about 5 days. So that's
Excellent.
nice.
5 days.
I know.
You heard.
I don't like being away from home very much.
Yeah,
5
yeah.
days. I like being home. So
Yeah, that's-
I like vacationing, but I like coming home. So.
Good.
Yeah.
Any
comment if I could.
questions for Samantha?
I don't have a question. I just, since our last meeting, we had the volunteer event, and I want to compliment you, Sam, you leadership and your staff, because that's kind of something that you do, and yet you were doing dishes. you were both hosting and working it, and it was the first time I've been there. It was a joyful event, and also on your communications. You used the word robust. The communications that I see, because it's in my feed, it is robust. And so in terms of outreach and recruitment, the more robust your comms are, the higher quality of applicant and candidate. So I want to compliment you, because I know that that's how we get really strong staff and really strong leadership. And during those annual events, that's when you really see the impact. For me, anyway, that's when I really see the impact. So, kudos, you deserve. Take 10 days.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Samantha? I have just one. You talked about getting back to pre-pandemic staffing levels. I would venture to say that your programming load is higher now than before the pandemic.
Yes.
Is that safe to say?
That is safe to say. We're offering more, and we're also seeing much higher attendance than we did before the pandemic. And then that also goes for not just programming, but also the rentals of the community center. So we're seeing a lot of action there as well. So, but the interesting thing is just, as people cycle through, it's a really good opportunity for us to assess, where we're putting our time and how things are divided and how we can be more effective. So, we haven't had a full staff, and in the last, I guess it's been 9 months almost, we've been even less than that. And so, my team has just stepped up, because I'm pretty sure that any impact to the community has been fairly minor in our short staffness. So I just see this as a huge opportunity, and we've seen a lot of growth. But I think that in our line of work, we're always looking for too is like, is that serving the residents best? And then, maybe we need to focus a little more here and pull back on that. And so we're always ebbing and flowing as well. So, but yeah, the success and the amount of stuff has just continued to grow.
Yeah, I've sensed some changes in the staff, just their general demeanor, and it's for the positive. So congratulations
so
to
you,
you and Brad for, because where you go to work is a very important part of your life, and to have it be a place that you feel like you're accomplishing something and also enjoy being is a good thing. So congratulations. Okay, so now item 9 is our opportunity to give any comments or reports that we have on things that we've either been touched by or that we have participated in that are pertain to Parks and Recreation. Anybody want to share anything? Nothing?
Just one thing. So I'm taking the watercolor class, and I'm just amazed at how many people are taking the class and how many are not from Yountville. We're pulling people from St. Helena and Napa, and I think it's pretty amazing. So thank you, Sam. It's been great. Yeah.
Well, I think the important backstory to that, because I do hear a lot of concern that we generate these programs, and like pickleball is a prime example. Well, we do have a pretty good number of Yountville players that play pickleball, but we have a lot of people from Napa. Well, part of the reason, especially for things like the watercolor and the other things, is we have more choices because we have more people participating other than just Yountville residents. So we have more offered because of that. So yes, it's a two-edged sword, but I think in the end it's worth noting that we come out looking pretty good in terms of what's offered because of participation by people from out of the area. Sorry that took so long to get out. Okay, so I think if there's nothing else, then we need a motion to adjourn at 2 minutes after 8, a long meeting. Motion?
I make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan.